Alrighty, we are now moving from one offline demand creation vehicle, radio, to another, TV. A shorter section, I give you my word. Why shorter? Well, partially because there's a little crossover. Some of the tips from the previous section will apply here as well, but primarily because, bad news, for the vast majority of not already famous authors, TV does not offer the book marketing opportunities that many assume it does. It's truly amazing how few non-celebrity authors we've seen, self-published or big house backed, who've been able to generate significant demand for their books over the last decade through TV interviews. And a couple of the ones who have will freely admit that even for them, the resultant sales probably didn't generate enough income to cover off their associated travel and time costs. So am I saying never seek out TV interviews? Focus all your demand creation energy elsewhere? Yeah, for some authors, I really think that is their best bet. But for many other authors, TV exposure can play a helpful role, can still be worth pursuing. However, it's important for all the authors to know what they're up against. You need to understand the negatives so that you can weigh them in deciding if this is a worthwhile space for you, and so that you can figure out a way around them if you do go forward. Let's take a closer look at my concerns. Number one, relative to radio, there really aren't that many TV shows that interview authors. Radio, for the most part, is local. Sure, there are nationally syndicated shows and satellite radio, but most of the time you're listening to a station from the city you're in. And there's a lot of cities out there, the vast majority with many stations. But nowadays, most TV programming is national. Of course, there's still local news in the majority of markets, but many of the locally produced shows have been mothballed for financial reasons. Network shows and syndicated shows dominate. Now, on the surface, that can seem like a positive, and on occasion it is. There are fewer possible shows to get on, but when you do make an appearance, you probably have a big audience, a nationwide audience in many cases. But here's the problem, bluntly stated. Many of those shows don't want you. They want celebrities, they want proven commodities, they want people their audience already knows, can identify with, and is excited by. That's what drives ratings, and they can get those people. The competition for slots is beyond tough. When you think about it, it's an interesting situation. Because of media fragmentation, so many channels, and because of the internet and social media and Netflix, individual show ratings are under siege, but it's never been harder to get on a show. Not a great combination. Point number two. In the last few years, the difficult to get on problem has been exacerbated by many shows altering their format somewhat. Instead of booking one-off guests, often authors, to serve as experts on general interest subjects like health, personal finance, relationships, cooking, etc., many programs are now utilizing regular guests. The same person comes on as the finance expert, say once every 2 weeks. The same fitness guru is on every Friday morning to help us get in shape. The same culinary whiz is on monthly to show us the latest and greatest from the kitchen. These regulars block authors in those subject areas from getting on. The various shows' producers like the continuity, the consistency this approach provides. They carefully vet one expert in each field to find someone who is well suited to their audience and well matched to their host. Then that person over time develops a chemistry with the audience and host, a chemistry that a one-off guest can't hope to duplicate. Plus, the producers come to rely on the regular guest building a great feel for what works and using that feel to come up with solid segment ideas. Do you know what's really annoying about all this? I think it's the right move by the shows, for all the reasons I just cited. But for authors, it's tough to get around this issue. Sure, if you're famous, you'll be fine. If Jerry Seinfeld writes a cookbook, I just don't see him getting rejected because, I'm sorry, we already have Chef Diane on every Thursday. But for normal authors, though, I'm telling you, this has become an almost insurmountable problem with many shows. So you cleverly think, I'll just become the regular guest. I like your attitude. But easier said than done. Most roles are already filled, and competition for the few openings is crazy fierce. Plus, producers tend to lean towards experts with well-established personal brands, people who bring followings, wouldn't you? Concern number three, wow. It is often very expensive to do TV interviews. Very. No more phoners from your living room. Nope, you have to be in studio. That's fine if you're doing only local TV. You can drive there. And of course, if you live in New York or Toronto or London, you're fortunate to be in the hotspot for your country's national programs productions. But for the rest of us, yikes. Are you going to fly to San Diego to do even a very popular morning show? Airfare, hotels, cabs, meals, it all adds up, really adds up. Let's be honest. Again, unless you're an established author with high brand awareness and excellent distribution, it's tough to make the math work. So most authors wisely only seek out TV interviews in a city that they have to be in anyway for another reason. Makes good sense. You're off to Chicago for a conference. Why not try to book a TV interview while you're there? A lot of speakers/authors obviously travel a lot and are able to execute that strategy. But even then, they still run into concerns number 1 and 2. Plus, they're only able to give the show's producers a 1 or 2 day booking window. Tough sell. The cost of getting to TV interviews is a major issue for not only self-publishers, even for the big houses. You don't see many author tours anymore, but certainly the cost is worth it if you somehow buck the odds and get on a huge show, right? Not always. In fact, often not. How can that be? On to concern number 4. Warning, I get very fired up about this issue. A significant percentage of TV interviews, even with large audiences, sell almost no books. That's a fact, not an opinion. Why? Because the pitch angles and thus the segment's contents were not properly thought through. They were designed only to get the author on the show, but not to create demand for his or her work. The relationship expert pens a book with new perspectives on how to foster better communication, but somehow ends up pitching the 5 most romantic things you can do for Valentine's Day. Hey, I get it. Neat idea. The producer loved it, and perhaps the audience did too, but it didn't create any demand for the book. I could give you countless examples like that. In fact, I think most author TV interviews have that weakness. Now, you may be saying, Dave, you hypocrite. You told us we were a supplier, and our job was to create compelling content for the media's audience. Wrong. That's only part of what I said. It's bad form to quote oneself, but here goes. My exact words were, provide the media with fresh, compelling, relevant to their audience content designed in a way that also creates demand for your book. You can't leave that last part out, for heaven's sakes. That's why we're doing all this. It's weird, but with radio pitches, blogger pitches, newspaper pitches, social media pitches, etc., authors seem to instinctively balance both components of that instruction, but not with TV. Even a lot of the publicists struggle with this. I'm going to say some nice things about publicists in the next video, but let me offer this critical observation here. Publicists and authors have different objectives. We want to sell books. They want to get us publicity. Luckily, the latter usually leads to the former, but not with a lot of TV segments. The publicist will argue, okay, but the appearance grew your personal brand. Maybe, but that's not always easy to monetize. By the way, you know what really grows your personal brand? Book sales. I know I'm charged up about this, but I should be. Many authors I know have landed spots on major shows. They're on cloud 9. They spend the money flying to the studio. Days later, they're in near tears or even real tears, like literally crying, when the interview generates almost no sales in stores or on Amazon and almost no site visits. Jesse Finkelstein of Page 2 told me just yesterday about one of their authors getting on the Today Show and the interview having no sales impact. Then the same author did an interview on CBC Radio and sales and site visits went flying. I'm not surprised. Rant almost done, but stick with me for one quick story. Years ago at a major publishing symposium in Chicago, the organizers brought in a TV producer to teach the audience, publishers, how to pitch her show, one of the biggies. She picked 4 of their authors ahead of time and laid out 4 angles. The audience loved the presentation. It gave her a standing ovation. I just shook my head. None of the angles would have sold any books. Okay, I'm done. Number 5. TV interviews are short and getting shorter. I know I said in the radio section that sometimes when you perfect your answers to the 4 or 5 most commonly asked questions, short can be good, but I didn't mean 3 minutes. This trend towards 3 or 4 minute spots makes my previous concern even more of a problem. There's no time to go beyond the pitch angle, to expand on any points, to use humorous anecdotes, nothing. Radio interviews are a conversation. TV interviews are a presentation, often complete with props. Producers understandably love visual aids. Your job is to get across the info quickly that fulfills the pitch angle's mandate. That's fair, but I assure you that simultaneously making the audience want your book is not easy, even for the best of communicators. Oh, and by the way, these last 2 points count double if you're ever invited to be on a panel discussion. Those do not sell books. If it's a big show, hey, great for your ego and perhaps it'll lead to other opportunities. But the flash of the odd chyron saying author of ... is not enough to create demand among the viewers in all but the rarest of cases. Number 6. Okay, Mr. Negative is almost done. Actually could go on, but I won't. Well, except for these 2 points, 2 bigger than they seem points. 1, with TV, you have no say over the time of your appearance. If a show's ratings are notoriously weak in its last 15 minutes, and that's where you're slotted, c'est la vie. Number 2, TV producers are proven to be much less likely to push your website address, much less. Now, on the flip side, many shows like the visual of the book cover, and that's great for you, of course. I mean, that gets that visual and it really ties into people's minds, but I'm even seeing less of that recently. Have I completely scared you off seeking out TV interviews? That truly wasn't my intention. I just wanted to be honest about the negatives, the very real negatives. The next few videos will take a more positive path and look at some possible ways to navigate those dangerous waters. The next one is on working with publicists, something I get asked about a tremendous amount, twice a day in fact. But right now I'm going to play with my dog, Rico. He is the king of the world, or so he tells me.